Доброго вечора, шановні колеги. У нас сьогодні прес-конференція дискусія на дуже таку важливу тему для підприємців українських, яка присвячена місцю України в рейтингу Doing Business. Організували цю подію сьогодні ми, спілка українських підприємців. І я дуже рада, що сьогодні тут маємо
organized this meeting, and we have the opportunity to express the opinions of the President of Ukrainian Union Entrepreneurs, and I am the Executive Director of the Union of Ukrainian Entrepreneurs, and we also have Tatiana Tishuk, Editor of Index for Monitoring Reform Center, Natalia Melin, Director of Economic Programs, Ukraine Institute for the Future, and we are going to speak not only about doing business rating, but also about creation of good conditions for Ukrainian entrepreneurship. So we start, and the topic is goodbye to investment, what it means, this Ukraine's position in doing business rating. Thank you, Katerina. Good afternoon. First, I would like to go back to the essence of rating, doing business rating, in order to once again voice why it is important for society, why this rating is so important, in order to understand why this competition is like a game in Ukraine. Many follow the rating in Ukraine, this doing business rating. From one side, it is the indicator, and from the other, it is the indicator for world investors. Ukraine is a part of global economy and part of global market. And respectively, if we are part of global market, we are stakeholder and place for investment, and we are in the competitive field in which we have rigid, aggressive competitiveness for resources, competition for investment. For investment, we should fight for them. The development of economy without foreign investment is impossible, and we should state this. And Ukraine is in competitive environment in which it should be attractive for those financial sources that exist in global economy. And one of the markers for taking decisions by investors to start considering opportunities for investment. Doing business is used for this. This is my assessment. Maybe it is primitive for experts, but it is as I see it. And if we understand and analyze the doing business rating, we will see clear picture, and maybe we can change our place in the rating of doing business. Of course, we can interpret this 80th place of Ukraine as success if we see it in retrospective and in dynamics, how this rating changed throughout the years. And we can see it as a triumph or as stability if we look at this rating from 112th place, and we can see it as positive trend and success. And let's go back to the start of my comment that the place, the rating, can be viewed only in the context of competitive environment. And this competitive environment for us is those economies that are nearly in the same conditions, that have starting conditions like ours, that have a post-Soviet environment, and the basis for comparison is there. And if we analyze it, the situation is not good, because our closest neighbors, they have ratings that twice as good as in Ukraine. And the figures that were shown in doing business, and I would like to focus on these figures. Belarus 34, 44 Moldova, more developed nations that started fast, that rejected Soviet past. These are Poland, 24th, and 23rd Slovakia. The state that is the most discussed state in Ukraine, our closest neighbor, is at 40th place. And in this context, competition, environment of competitiveness, the rating of Ukraine, the 80th place, looks negative. And Ukrainian business should assess this place as extremely negative, and our position in the rating is absolutely negative, and this is my opinion on this. And this is a marker, and this is a marker of the future development of our economy. Investments is an inertia. They won't yield results fast. And if, because of different reasons, investors do not want to come here, we will have negative results, not only next year, but we will have negative results in 5 years, in 10 years, because investments that we search for, these are long-term investments. This is capital investment, construction of plants, new production facilities, telecommunication business, logistics. So these are long-term investments. That's why rating, it looks analytical, but it is really an important marker. My colleagues will go in more details on this, and they will tell what to do. And the Union of Ukrainian Entrepreneurs will not only criticize, they want to have constructive approach and be a partner in the dialogue with the power. And we have proposals, what we should focus on. And also, we should strive for success, maybe. We can name it promotion in the rating of doing business, but there are some draft laws in the Supreme Council, and the deputies should vote for new legislation, and we should go step by step, and we should provide the regulation laws that will drive Ukrainian economy and as markers will increase our rating in doing business rating. Thank you, Vyacheslav. And in continuation of what was said by Vyacheslav, I would like to say that there are calculations of the World Bank that 1 point in doing business rating is $500 or $600 million of investment. So if we look at the goal before Ukraine, and if we have task to go 20 points up, the potential is huge, and we should use this, and we should quickly adopt the laws. As it was stated, there is some inertia. It cannot happen fast, all those investments. And we have simple analogy. When investors in London, they have the task to invest 1 billion in some developing nation. They sit in their comfortable office and they think where to provide this money to. They know little about Ukraine, and they know that there is some military actions, and sports is good, for example, boxing. And in Moldova, they fired previously, and they see that now the situation there is better, so they go with the investment there. So everything is simple in taking these decisions. So by adopting on such laws, we can speak about the methodology of the rating, but this is the reflection of our situation for doing business in Ukraine. And not only for external investors, but also for our internal investors who adapted to the situation, as Vyacheslav said, that they got accustomed to work in any conditions in this country. But when we are speaking about capital investment and the development, we should create proper conditions. What we can do now? In the parliament, there is tons of draft laws that await adoption, that were prepared by the expert community, and with the participation of people's deputies, and with the participation of the Ministry of Justice. But they are just there. They are there for a month, for a year, and some of them, one draft law from this list underwent first reading, and all others were in the consideration by the committees. And our main message is that we call on parliament and the committees to promote this decisions and to adopt the regulation draft laws. All these draft laws can give us 20 points more, and according to the experts' estimates. And yesterday on the agenda of the parliament, there is the draft law number 3665, the law on mediation, and we hope for positive results because courts are overloaded, and the possibilities for this is one of the main components for the investments to come. And also construction is of importance. This is connection to electricity grids, and also corruption, fine as we call it, the share contributions. And the Union of Ukrainian Entrepreneurs said that this draft law should be cancelled. And at the last plenary session, it was put on the agenda, but they didn't vote for this. And this is draft law number 3610. It will provide 10 points up in the rating, and this is there are great component of corruption, and the draft law was adopted that replaced it. But now both laws, both taxes are in effect, and there is also such simple draft law 4187 on construction. There are simple things as education as the important component for architect, because this is construction, this is safety, and now the chief architect can be any person who has some working experience, not with higher education. So, and it is also included in the doing business. About bankruptcy, the draft law 3132D that was reviewed and amended, the document that regulates the procedure of bankruptcy, because in Ukraine bankruptcy is viewed how to avoid payments by the enterprise that went bankrupt, but this position is at 150 place, and the United States among top 5, and Poland is 27, and they can return more than 60% of debt, and in Ukraine only 7.5 is returned. So the bankruptcy is not a problem, it's a part of life, of economic process, and circulation of money and assets, and they go from one hand to another. So this is an important component of life cycle of in the economy, and these laws concerning activity connected with bankruptcy is very important. Also, foreign trade, tax system, and I won't name all of this. These draft laws are all in the parliament, and the deputies should vote for these draft laws. And also, I would like to share their opinion about one thing that reflects real situation in the system of regulation in our country. We had the process of e-declarations that was completed, and officials and deputies declared some assets, and a lot of their savings as just cash, and they earned them on decisions, on regulatory decisions, to allow something, to do something, or do not allow, to take a decision in someone's favor, or to vote for some draft law. So this is the reality we lived in, and these are the sources of this money. So this money that is done not in favor, is earned. This is anti-rating of doing anti-doing business. So the amount of cash that they have, this is like anti-doing business. So I will stop at that. If you have questions, please. And now I give the floor to Tatiana Tishuk, editor of the Index for Monitoring Reforms, IMOR, so they see the dynamics, and we look at several steps ahead, and we will continue our discussion. Thank you very much.
I represent analytical platform Vox Ukraine. We launched at the beginning of 2015 the initiative IMOR in order to trace every 2 weeks the changes in the legislation, regulations, how regulator reacts to impact on reforms, whether reforms go in the right direction, maybe some acts work so that reforms are pedaled, and monetary sphere, energy sector, business environment, they are traced by us. The next slide will show you. There is dynamics of distance to frontier. The methodology is that we can follow dynamics for Ukraine of DTF, distance to frontier. This is recommended by the World Bank. This factor is calculated. The country with the worst rating has 0 points, and the country with the best practices is given 100%. So here you can see Ukrainian dynamics. So the situation in Ukraine has improved by 1 percentage point. So publication of this rating, this is to remind to our parliamentarians and reformers that everyone engaged in discussion of some parks, technological parks, industrial parks, and this is the reminder from global communities what to do to make business environment easy for entrepreneurs to start and operate. On this slide you can see reforms in progress during recent 2 years, what happened and what were the directions. You can see here the components: deregulation, competition policy, foreign trade, corporative management, and property rights. There was some progress with deregulation. This means cancellation of some certificates, some permits, they are no longer needed. Very insignificant, some isolated cases of reforms in the sphere of property rights, which influences very much on doing business indicators, and some competitive policy improvements. We can see significant changes for the better in corporate management. Corporate management also influence the indicators of doing business, because here minority rights protections fall, and also foreign trade. This is simplifying foreign trade with other countries. Here also we have some progress, because WTO agreement was ratified. Here you can see all laws and regulations adopted to promote in doing business spheres, which improve business environment, and those changes which directly affected the indicators of doing business. They are the law on the regulations, amendments to the tax code, shareholders' rights amendments, and amendments, recent amendments of some provisions on execution, enforcement of contracts. So via this mechanism we can hope that there will be changes of contract enforcement rank, that we will go up. Here you can see the regulations changes which influence conditions of doing business. They not all fall into the rating, because for example, the law on public procurement, it was highly assessed by the aspect and the experts. Its role is that this is a step implementing civilized rights on public procurements market, the strengthening of bank owners' responsibility also changes the quality corporate management of banks. It is important. The law on shareholders' rights and protection of investors' rights, they influence the indicators of doing business. And there are very important things such as justice system reforms, which are the first steps made in Ukraine. Amendments to constitution have been adopted, and new law on status of judges and courts has been adopted, but if our reforms continue and our policymaker will continue reforms, then and civilized rights may be applied, and deregulation law influenced our doing business, ease of doing business indicators, and there is things connected to the regulation and cancellation of norms and standards which were present for 25 years just to increase the level of corruption. There were corrupt schemes under those provisions when some people had to get some certificates of permits. They just paid bribes. So quotation of also are being cancelled. Who works better here? Based on our rating, we also developed the rating of institutions. We can see from here that some leading role is played by the Cabinet of Ministers, 159. This is the score of the Cabinet. It adopted 126 regulations. Many laws, they got small scores because the regulation is daily work, and the steps, they are not very large. After that, on the second place is Verkhovna Rada. Parliament adopted 30 laws which influenced the environment on doing business. The National Bank and the president of the country, they also influenced the ease of doing business in Ukraine. The president usually initiates not so many regulations, but they are of huge importance. That is why they are highly estimated by experts. This is just very critical acts. What should be done? It is very important to say that in order to improve our rank in doing business rating, and not in general, but those indicators which are traced by doing business rating. There are 10 draft laws pending in the parliament. These 10 bills, they may help us to go up in the doing business rating. They concern bankruptcy, contract enforcement. This should be done. They should be adopted. Thank you very much. There is very much information about reforms at our website, not only about business environments, but also about other spheres. Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to give the floor to Anatoly Amelin. He represents Ukrainian Institute of the Future. That is why he will be looking for longer perspective. Now we talked about what we should do today, and Anatoly will be talking about tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Good afternoon. Ukrainian Institute of Future was established 3 months ago. Our task is to forecast and to provide advice to our country leaders, to our policymakers. As concerns doing business right, and this is an important market, but is not the only one. There is a key task which has not been resolved in the country. We need the strategy where Ukrainian citizen will be the beneficiary. We have very many sectoral reforms. They are ongoing, but there is no integrated strategy, national country strategy. Of course, doing business rating is a market, but it is not pleasant for me that the reforms in our country are motivated not from inside, but from outside, from our foreign partners and international institutions. So doing business is our comparison with other jurisdictions. This is not our domestic motivation, inner motivation, inside the motivation. So we lost about half of our economy since 2008. So Western experts think that even 80% growth in GDP will be good for Ukraine. So this means that we will never again achieve the level of 2008, so we should grow faster. In our institute, we analyzed the need in investments. We need to attract more than $270 million investment. Mr. Loshkin talked about $240 million. What can we propose to, what can we offer to our investors so that they come here and remain staying here? But we offer to our investors very little. This is the lack of policy. Investment is the main driver of economy. You know that all European countries, they develop thanks to foreign investment. There were also other factors, but this was the key factor. The main task of reform is to create environment to attract investment. So what steps we should do yesterday? The environment for doing business is not comfortable in Ukraine. Comparing with European jurisdictions, let's ask whether small and large companies may get resources for their development from somewhere. No, they can't get foreign investment from anywhere, while our competitors, even in Poland, they have access to investments from foreign countries which are loan and cheap. They are loan and cheap money. The second task is to give jobs, to provide self-employment, to provide environment for self-employment. This would stabilize the economy. Large companies, they depend on foreign markets more than small businesses. Small businesses, they allow economy to be stable. We have not realized steps on the shadowing of our economy. 50% of economy are in the shadow. In Ukraine, the main step for us to get investments is our tax system. Comparing to European judiciaries, our taxes are high. Average proceeds and the amount of taxes paid in Europe compared to Ukraine, Ukraine is outside by these indicators. Here we have been talking for 2 years about fiscal reforms. Taxes, they should be promotional, but not only fiscal. Our taxes, they do not promote investment. They do not promote development of businesses. Minister of Finance in his rhetorics now has statements on taxes on offshore capital. We offered fast amortization, accelerated amortization, depreciation, or tax on offshore capital. So ideally, this tax can be launched from 2020. Replacement of import is also an important component. So energy security is compromised by those procurement of energy resources from other countries. In recent years, we bought fossil fuels for $50 billion. The imported energy resources could be replaced with our domestic resources. We just should invest 17 billions. We can find 17 billions of dollars instead of paying 51 billions to foreign countries. Why we haven't done so? Because the Russian Federation is against. This is geopolitics. Then foreign exchange currency regulation. Ukraine need to attract to Ukraine 21 billions cash foreign exchange currency. So we can take such a benchmark. For example, small Singapore with 5 million population, they attract $60 billion investment annually. So plus 1 percentage point for Singapore gives Singapore not 600 million but several billions. So ideally we should strive to go up to 20th rank from 80s. So one of the most important steps to improve environment for doing business in Ukraine, we should change regulations while bureaucrats they backpedal our reforms. The important step, this is reforms of civil service. Civil servants, they should serve in the economy while they still remain in such a post-Soviet model. The bureaucrats continue to use us for their benefit. For someone, this is corruption resource. For someone, this is just to survive. If a bureaucrat will lose the procedure which provides him with money for living, then what this bureaucrat will do? How he could earn his living? So the draft laws and good initiatives, some good draft laws are pending in the Verkhovna Rada, some good regulations are pending in the Cabinet of Ministers. We live still in the old system because foreign exchange law is very old, and investors are saying that they do not feel comfortable investing into this jurisdiction. Until we change the model of business with our investors, we should become better by each indicator. Doing business rating is a good marker, but attracting investments, this is more important in marker. Maybe there are any questions. You are invited now to ask your questions.
About doing business, so you told us a lot about it, and Anatoly said about the risks. And there are steps in order to raise the spirit of entrepreneurship, because in 90s we had even more difficult situation, and taxes and everything else were more aggressive, and now the number of entrepreneurs rises. So now in several regions there is a project that they plan to increase the number of entrepreneurs, and there should be people who are involved in business, otherwise we won't get investment. You know, maybe as the majority of Ukrainian entrepreneurs, we do not get accustomed to the favorable conditions for business here. We do not have, in our system of coordinates, we do not have expectations that conditions will improve. And we took decision that we should act on our own, and one of the decisions that was taken by company that we should establish a business school for Ukrainian entrepreneurs. We came to conclusion that it should be free of charge. The budget of this organization is within the budget of New Post, Nova Poshta. What was the motivation for this? So I meet entrepreneurs among our clients, and I am convinced that first, in the territory of Ukraine, so we have a low number of entrepreneurs. I'm not speaking about physical persons, entrepreneurs. We know about the number, about 2 million. 1,300,000 provided reports. So we know what this number represents. And we have low number of entrepreneurs on the whole. And the level of training, qualification of those entrepreneurs that we have, mildly speaking, these are talented people. They have spirit of innovation, of entrepreneurship. I know many people who are super talented as entrepreneurs here in Ukraine. I know these people. They are energetic. They just try to survive. But unfortunately, they do not speak English. They cannot get information about best practices and benchmarks. They do not know financing. And when they are asked some specific terms, they do not know them. They do not know how to create brand. They do not know where to start from, but they really start their business, but the efficiency is really low. That's why one of the parts of our mission is, first, we should help these entrepreneurs to emerge. And people, for example, should leave enterprises, state enterprises, and to become private entrepreneurs. And the competence, the skill of these people should rise. And we have a small project for 400 entrepreneurs, 100 in 4 cities. They applied and started to undergo training in our school. This is a first year of study, and we'll get results in December, and we will understand the efficiency we will get the result, and we want to upscale this project. So in Lviv, Odessa, Kharkiv, and Dnipro, we opened these schools, and in Kropyvnytsk, Cherkassk, and Ivano-Frankivsk, the situation is catastrophic. That's why we are going to continue our project, and several hours ago I had a meeting with the foundations that are ready to invest and to help in the expansion of this type of projects. That's why we believe so much in this project. Thank you. Next question. Vitaly Knizhensky, a day newspaper. I would like to get the answer from all the speakers. Today the government took decision that is rather strange. They cancelled the results of the contest on distribution of products on Yuzovska platform. How can you assess this decision, considering the prospects of investment that should come to the country? Anatoly? This is a positive event. The format, the procedures on access of unknown company Yuzhgaz to this platform raised a lot of concern, and this was reflected in the decisions, and not only of power, but also the decisions of investors. There is shadow mechanisms that distort the trust in the government. That's why this decision will renew the trust to the government and will help to investors to restore trust in Ukrainian power. So now the interests of the state start to prevail, and this is a positive trend, and I welcome this decision of our government. And my colleagues agree on this. Everyone supports this decision. Thank you. So next question. I would like to ask one more question. As I understand, we lay foundations of the new enterprise. So new business will arise, and those owners of the enterprise, for them it is difficult to develop because they do not understand what systemic business means, and investments should be attracted, and we would like to hear about the members of association, and maybe I understand about whom you ask. If I understood your question correctly, we have positive examples in the Union of Entrepreneurs, and I would like to tell you about what we do. The Union of Ukrainian Entrepreneurs was established by Ukrainian entrepreneurs for Ukrainian entrepreneurs. So this is an important message that we are not about politics and about oligarchs. We are for independent entrepreneurship in the state. And the basic aim, the goal of our union is the development of entrepreneurship and creation of favorable conditions in order that the enterprises were created and developed. And the enterprises join us despite their locality, despite their size, but they should be taxpayers in Ukraine and they should be located here in Ukraine. And we hope and we see it as a mission that physical entity entrepreneur, that they should be the leaders in the market, and our joint training, sharing of experience and knowledge and expertise, and to see how the businesses work, small businesses, big businesses, that will allow them to grow. Not only theory, not only legislation, but also how businesses build from the scratch. And the second question of yours about successful examples. One of the members of the board of Ukrainian Union, UBC group representative in May, laid the foundation for the new plant in Vinnytsia. This will be up to date modern enterprise where refrigerators will be produced, and this is the leading company and in the area, and they export for 70 countries in the world. And this is one of the examples that show that despite all the conditions in this country, business and Ukrainian entrepreneurship is on the rise. And we shouldn't forget about internal investor, and there is great potential, and they should understand whether they want to invest in this country. And the importance of people who joined the union, these are people who took decision for themselves, and Vyacheslav will confirm this, that they want to live and develop their business in this country. That's what we got united, and that's why we start all those projects we speak about now. And that's why we are here today, and we want to say that in this 80th place in the rating is not that we want, and not and the conditions in the country is too far away from the comfortable ones. And I would like to add that the Union of Ukrainian Entrepreneurs clearly outlined that deregulation is one of 3 key priorities in our activity. And I want to say proudly that our team was reinforced, and society and power will see the rise of our activity, and we will work in the framework of deregulation, and that will be not just critical observations. Of course, we are critical of that because we were created for this, and we will be some sort of irritation for the government, for the cabinet of ministers, and we will be actively generating draft laws of different types, different legislation acts, and in order to make this process accelerated, because we have expert team, and this team will get all those impulses from industries that are a part of Ukrainian Union of Entrepreneurs, and this will generate content, and the task of power will be just to vote for this. So we will act in such a way. Thank you. So the next question. Thank you for this report. Tell us, please, are you going to invite ATO participants and volunteers who also can help, because I see that many of them who returned from there, they cannot find their place, and they return to the front line, and sometimes they join some other institutions, do you have some plans to help them? Because I underwent rehabilitation 3 times, and this is not simple thing. This is change of everyday life. You know that this is like this. So we will think about it. Thank you very much for your comment, and thank you for your proposal. We will think about it. Like Scarlett O'Hara, I will think about it tomorrow. It will be honest to say that we will think about it, because we don't have it at the moment. I will tell you what the problem is. After this e-declarations, people saw that some people have assets, they have money, and some people said there are some looting, some killings, some robbery, and other facts. And you understand that people who were in the military actions, or they didn't directly participate, but they witnessed these events, and they had their consciousness changed. So when you, this is different experience, different view on life, and the decisions should be taken that will, you understand that people, they understand the world differently, and these problems, they will last for tens of years. What I said about the development of the strategy of realization, this is not the question to the Union. This is we should attract investment, and we should make people employed, and this is the task for the Cabinet of Ministers. And entrepreneurs, they do a lot. They force the government, and they create employment in the country. And Katerina said that she will think about it, so you can get her contacts and then communicate with her in the future. So thank you very much, dear colleagues. Till the next time, goodbye. Thank you. Thank to all participants.